So let's take...
And when I'm around my relatives, I'm unlikely to be calm.
It's the term that they ask you to calm down. Yeah. But you only listen when it's Taylor Swift.
That's right, because Taylor Swift loves me. I believe it in my heart. Taylor Swift and I have a relationship.
I was going to say, wouldn't it be great if eventually the ACA and Taylor Swift did an event and I was like, oh, okay, well, never mind. Because this video exists now.
I have no idea if Taylor Swift loves me or not, just for the record. I don't want anybody clipping that out and going, look, this guy's nuts.
Okay, so I don't know the answer, but based on a reasonable understanding of the world, I believe I can conclude, no, sorry.
Now I'm on a mission.
That's me. All right, so let's take...
Send her a text real quick.
Oh, Lord. Let's take Anthony in Florida. You're on with Jamie and Matt, and we just can't stop telling jokes until there's a caller on the line. So how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing marvelously.
This is like the first time I actually called. I listened to like many of your videos and stuff. Actually,
cool.
like
watch them all the way through, hit like, and then also subscribe.
Watched the debate. I watched the debate. I like when Matt debate with other Christians, because like every time when I see another person, like an atheist debate with another Christian, I don't like it because they don't know how to debate. Like this guy.
Well, what's funny is we're starting on a point of agreement. I also like when Matt debates Christians, but
yeah,
here, it says you wanted to talk.
Well, we're unanimous.
Yeah, woo. The motion passes unanimously. So it says here you wanted to talk about the difference between Christian and atheist marriages.
Yes, I wanted to.
The fact that atheist marriages tend to last longer.
Well. Not necessarily.
You're correct, not necessarily.
The divorce rate is lower, though.
Because if you think about it, like, Christians, like, tend to hold on because of the Bible and...
Yeah, because their churches have made it a sin to, divorce was a sin.
Yeah, I mean, let's clarify here. That could be hypothesized as a reason why Christians stay in a marriage that in any other circumstance they would break off a relationship with another person like that.
Where the smartest thing
would be to break off a thing and get kids and leave the house. But there are actual polls and studies on this, and But
the divorce rate may be lower because the marriage rate is lower.
Yeah, well, it's fewer people getting married at 16 because they're horny.
Yeah, and being stuck there forever. As far as I can tell, it's just an obvious fact that relationships end. And when you try to prolong a relationship to the point where it's no longer healthy, well, that to me explains itself. It's no longer healthy. And so the fact that, well, anyway, you wanted to talk about the difference between Christian and atheist marriages, and you haven't talked for a second. So go ahead.
You have a point there, because that's what I'm trying to say. Like, to the point where it's not healthy. But the thing about it, you have to understand that as a Christian, they believe that God has a purpose with you two to combine, like I don't know. I know you're a Christian. You used to be a Christian, Matt, and I know you know the Bible. I don't know if you remember the verse that says, "Whatever God binds can never be broken."
Yeah, I think it's.
Are you familiar with
is that the one that's
term?
in Genesis, or?
I'm not even convinced that is specifically in the Bible, but it might be, because I don't remember every aspect of it. But the whole
I don't know. I just heard.
The Bible has encouragements in it for a man to leave his family and cling to his wife, and it has prohibitions against divorce, except in any case except for like infidelity, which they made an exception for. But I just want to know. I want you to make your point on what's the difference between a Christian marriage and an atheist marriage, and why should anybody care?
Well, the difference between Christian marriage and atheist marriage is that Christian marriage is like I it's just that I don't see any difference, but I just see something like I believe that atheist marriage borrows from the Christian marriage,
So
I don't know.
I think based on the culture that people were raised in when they get married, if that culture had traditions about how marriage ceremonies are performed, that probably influences how they go about planning the ceremony of their wedding. So that point, I can agree. But as a quick aside, because atheists also get married with a justice of the peace or with an ordained. I don't know whether they're called pastors or pastors.
None of that matters.
Yeah. But to be clear, I would push back on the idea that somehow those ideas are explicitly Christian or belong to people that believe. Those are human things that humans do.
Atheist marriage isn't borrowing from Christian marriage any more than Christian marriage is borrowing from the notion that human beings are social creatures and tend to bond in pair couples in order to raise children quite often. However, at the end of the day, if your church marries two people and the government never gives you a marriage certificate, you're not married in any sense that matters. Atheist marriage and Christian marriage, both of us, the only marriage that matters is the one that is recognized and sanctioned by the government, because everything else is pretty much just like the last caller saying, hey, I feel like I'm married.
I think I generally agree with your sentiment, but I would say that whatever marriage ceremony probably matters to the people participating in it, but
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's either a legal marriage or it's not. There's a reason we fought for marriage equality, because when people were running around saying, well, you can have civil unions and it's just the same. No, it's fucking not.
Yeah, there's a difference there, but
there's exactly one marriage that matters, and that's the one that is sanctioned by the government that gives the benefits that people want, which, by the way, are
government of the United
States.
No other countries count.
Okay, so my question is to you, Matt, is that do you agree that do you believe that people should get married and they love each other, or just be in a relationship?
I don't care.
Which one is better? Because
I think it's not a matter of better. See, here's the thing. Should people get married? Maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't have a marriage institution. Maybe we should have a contractual thing. Maybe we should have time-limited marriages where, hey, me and somebody that I really care about can go down and we can get like a 3-year marriage contract, and it just automatically ends at 3 years with a dissolution of everything. It doesn't matter. None of this has any relevance to whether or not there's a God.
Yeah, I was going to say...
That's true. That is true. It doesn't have anything to do with whether there is a God.
Yeah. Do you think that... So just as a quick aside, so do you think that a marriage between two people that believe in the same God that's recognized by the government is significantly different in a better way than a marriage between two atheists that's recognized by the government?
No, not necessarily. I just think it's just a little bit different. It's just how they run their family. That's the only thing.
It depends on the Christian, but yeah. Sorry, my mind immediately went to, there's passages in the Bible that support corporal punishment for your children, that I think if you examine the results of your actions in determining what to do, you shouldn't do. But...
And not only that, is that the man is the head of the household, and the women's supposed to, to be honest with you, I don't agree with men. Well, I do agree on...
Good for you. Congratulations. You value human equality more than, I believe it's Ephesians 5 in the New Testament.
Yeah.
Hashtag feminism.
Yes, but you have to understand that in a relationship, there are hierarchies, no matter what. Even in your friends or your boss or your work, it doesn't even matter. There is hierarchy. Somebody has to be the more masculine figure in the relationship.
No.
And that's true.
No, it's fucking not. Nobody has to be more masculine than somebody else, and there doesn't have to be a power disparity. There are such things as cooperative partnerships. I'm sorry that this is such a foreign concept to you, but you're just wrong.
Okay.
However, in our relationship, you and I'm in charge.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So
because you're in charge of the yeah.
So let me just clarify. I think
Okay.
it's assumed, and it's probably right. When you say more masculine, do you mean that there's an uneven power dynamic, like one person at the end of the day?
What I meant was by more masculine. I'm talking about somebody has to be the one that, like for example, like in a homosexual relationship.
Tell me
like
about
that.
them.
Like
Yeah,
two
please explain this to
and-
Jamie.
Okay, so when two men, yeah, they're in a relationship, whatever. They're both men, so like when they're together, you can tell. Like if you study them, you can tell which one has more of an influence on this relationship of what's the final say in it.
No. So the fact that you can point to the fact that there are power imbalances and disparities doesn't mean that there aren't partnerships.
What do you mean?
My mom and dad are in a marriage where my dad is ostensibly the one that's in charge, although secretly my mom's actually the one that's in charge, if you watch. But showing that there's an imbalance in that relationship, or even in most relationships, or even in common relationships, doesn't mean that there has to be or there should be.
No, I'm not saying that there has to be or should be.
So the way that you phrased that when you said, sorry. So when you originally introduced your idea, you said, oh, there is, in like universal terms, as far as this is the way that relationships between human beings work. If you mean to say, when I think of the relationships that I've observed, it seems to me that there's always, I think the first word you used was hierarchy, then you're commenting on your observations, and I can
exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that it does need it. I'm just saying that it just tends to happen. Like, I feel like when I'm next to my friends or okay.
So let me use this as a jumping off point for a little bit of casual skepticism. So because it's something that you always observe, and particularly because of the way you're talking about it, it's going to frame the way that you think about future relationships. So that when you see a relationship, right, same sex or otherwise, if you are paying attention to like, oh, I wonder what the power dynamic or what the hierarchy is, you're starting with the assumption that there is one, so that if you came across a relationship that you were then paying attention to where it was a partnership, you would be thinking, oh, I can't tell who is at the higher end of the hierarchy, rather
who's
than
the man.
Who's more masculine was the phrase you used. So I would say, particularly when it's, oh, things that I've observed, be careful, because those influence the way that you see the world. They influence the way you observe the next event.
And it's worth pointing out that while all I'm objecting to is the statement or your suggestion that there will or should be or always is some sort of power imbalance, I'm fine with the notion that it's possible for a healthy relationship to have one person far more in charge and far more in control than the other one. That's about what kind of relationship works for those two people. But I'm also fine with the notion that there's a possibility of true partnerships where maybe on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm in charge, and on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, my partner's in charge, and then on Sunday, we just go spend time with other people. But
we don't have to spend 7 days together. It's fine.
When you start doing this, oh, well, in relationships, there's a power imbalance. Yeah, there often is, but I would argue that power imbalance is one of the things that makes relationships less healthy.
Yeah.
And that when you run across relationships where there's not a power imbalance, I would suspect that they're less likely to lead to breakups.
Yeah, I'd also like to say, in terms of what you observe as far as like the romantic relationship or sexual relationship with other people, presumably you're not observing them with a team of other people 24/7 and studying psychology and body language and analyzing like financial decisions. Because there's a couple that I know where anyone that would observe them would assume that there's a hierarchy one way, where as soon as they're behind closed doors, bedroom, kitchen, or otherwise, it is the opposite way.
And a fine example of that point is Mormons. Mormons are encouraged to put a positive face on things and spin that they don't have any issues, they don't have any problems, because that reflects negatively on the church. So they put up a good facade when they are anything but healthy on many occasions.
Does that make sense so far?
I never really liked the Mormons anyway, their beliefs.
I haven't met all of them.
I've liked every Mormon I've ever met. Their job is to make sure that you like them. It's really hard to say, you know what?
True.
That Mormon's a fucking asshole. That you almost never hear that.
Yeah. You almost never hear that about ex-Mormons either. Well, so here, before we get into Mormonism, I think in the examples that you gave, you also gave boss-employee as far as relationships where there's a hierarchy. So in legal terms, in business, there are true partnerships where there are two equal partners. Like that is the example of a true partnership. Does that contradict your notion of there always being a hierarchy, or not?
Not. It does not really.
You mean in like an emotional in terms of decision making thing? Like one person will always, at the end of the day, defer to the other's decision.
It does not. It's just natural. It's not like.
Well, so no, I'm not asking you whether it's natural or not, or whether it happens or not. I'm now asking you to explain. For example, there are two business partners and they're equal partners. Because we're running on time here, so I'm getting a little bit more to the point, so we can at least finish this idea. There are two people. Right. They are equal business partners of Corner Store Incorporated or whatever. If it was, never mind. There's just two equal business partners. Is there necessarily or probably or a natural reason for there to be a hierarchy or a power imbalance? And can you describe what that imbalance would be or would likely be?
Well, I wouldn't be able to.
Well, so if I say that, can you give me an example of something that you wouldn't be surprised to find in observing that relationship?
I wouldn't be surprised to find power imbalances all over the place.
No, I meant
not my point of objection.
No, I know. I'm trying to get him to describe what it would be outside of a marriage.
I'm trying to figure out how this is relevant to any of the issues.
Well, in part, I'm trying to get to the point of, like, if you can hypothesize and know that there are billions of relationships and even more of those that have happened between pairs of people that are just alive right now, and with a limited number of years and a limited number of experiences and flawed and subjective experiences of relationships based on prior understandings of them, why would you come to the conclusion that this is true rather than, wow, this seems to be the way that my observations lead in terms of a marriage? The point that I'm trying to get to, I guess we're running on time, so sorry for this part being one directional, Anthony, is there are two parts of examining that. One, it's a belief. Well, first, there are three parts. First, it's a belief if it influences the way that you think or see the world or will address or come to future. Excuse me.
So while he's getting a drink, go ahead.
Okay.
Or come to future beliefs, it is important. It's a thing that influences you and how you think. You should make sure that you control it rather than it controlling you, in terms of trying to believe as many true things and as few false things and be rational and make the best decisions for yourself. So the last two things are examining what it is that you observe that leads you to that conclusion, right? Like, one person asks the other, like, oh, yeah, what time should we leave? And the other one says, yeah, 5 minutes from now. Examining how strong the evidence has to be for you and what reasoning you have to do and how quickly you come to that conclusion.
I'm
right?
sorry.
But the third thing is the next place that you have to go that doesn't appeal to people and that doesn't occur to people naturally is, why do I think that way? And how can I demonstrate that my own reasoning is flawed and that I shouldn't? Or at very least, expand it. Because there isn't a way of casually observing human behavior that should lead anyone to even a very confident or even a half-confident conclusion about all of human nature. Obviously, you have to have a working set of conclusions, but I would say the less restrictive your working set of conclusions is, particularly on however many years of observation, the better you're going to be able to understand people and people that engage in a way that you didn't previously understand. For example, the better that a person who had never known or even thought about a same-sex couple would be able to understand that that is a thing, as a single example. So unless there's one part of that, like, did my explanation or point make sense at the end there?
Yeah, like, kind of. I understand what you're saying, and that's something that I really need to think about.
Yeah, and it's not just that one. It's everything that you believe, or that I believe.
Yeah.
And I'm still wondering what the point is. I'm still wondering what the point is, because, yes, okay, look, are you going to observe imbalances in relationships? Yes, absolutely. All over the place, all the time. Does your observation means that you correctly understand what the imbalance is, or if there is one? No, obviously. But what does any of this have to do with God or gods? Because
Nothing.
You started off calling in to say you wanted to talk about the difference between Christian and atheist relationships, marriages. And to my understanding, the primary difference between a Christian marriage and an atheist marriage is that the atheists don't believe in a God. So what's the point in discussing this?
Well, that's the thing. Like, but you already solved my flaws.
So here,
let him finish.
At first, I started off with believing that the atheists borrow some of their moral standards from.
Okay, that's a completely different discussion, which is exactly what I thought you were suggesting.
Oh, I didn't read that at all.
What I'm trying.
You're still wrong. I don't have to. I didn't reach my moral conclusions by borrowing from the Christian worldview. I've reached my moral conclusions by excoriating and exposing the flawed thinking behind the Christian moral view, and actually spending time putting in the effort to figure out why and how something should be perceived as morally correct or immoral. I'm not borrowing from anything that some religion has put forward. The fact that some religion may agree with me on morals is seemingly, as far as I can tell, a complete fucking accident, because they have no demonstration that they have any methodology to lead to a correct moral view or any foundation that would support a correct moral view. Because if your foundation is God said so, you lose.
That is true.
Yeah.
Like, you can't. That's just like. You have to come stronger than that. And I listened to a lot of the debates, and, like, trust me, you changed my mind so much.
Yeah, it's always good to examine people arguing efficiently for the other side. I would encourage you to do that. And then also the part with the skepticism, particularly about casual conclusions. I think they slip in there more often than not. So I'm going to go ahead and let you go, Anthony, because we're running short on time at the end of the show. But feel free to call back. It'll probably be Eric next week. It might be me, etc. Or reach out to us on Reddit or the Facebooks, and also hit like and subscribe.